Welcome to Horizons of Thought. Today I'm going to talk about bullying. When I was a kid, I was bullied a lot, and there are a lot of reasons why I was bullied as a child. One of which is that I was an exceptionally strange kid. I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and the effect of that when I was a child is I wouldn't pay attention to my environment very well. I would get easily upset and act out in really inappropriate ways, and I would find myself having an enormous amount of difficulty getting along with the other kids. There's a good possibility that I was somewhere on the autism spectrum at the same time, and that part of this is certainly the case that I had trouble looking at people, and I had trouble looking at their body languages and reading their body languages. And so what would end up happening is somebody's basically trying to tell me through body language that they're upset with what I'm doing, and I'm not hearing any of it, and I'm just continuing on my merry old way doing what I'm doing. And when you're a child and the other children around you don't really know how to communicate with you that they're upset with you, they sometimes get very frustrated with you. And if children can get frustrated with you and then don't yet have the social skills to deal with that, they are likely to turn around and bully you. And this actually happened to me quite a bit as a child. I got beat up a lot. I got ostracized a lot. I didn't have very many friends. When I was around grade 1 to grade 3, I really only had the one friend, Andre, who was a wonderful, wonderful friend who was very similar to me. And so my childhood was characterized by lots of bullying experiences. It wasn't until around between grade 7 and grade 9 that my bullying experiences started to change. And it wasn't a ton different than what you see in the movie Karate Kid. I didn't join some big tournament or anything, but I did start taking martial arts, and I did learn how to exercise a bit more. And there came a point in grade 8 and grade 9 where I had a couple of key fights in the schoolyard. And the end of those fights were with me injured and the other kid injured a bit more. I remember at one point I got into a fight with a kid. I can't even remember what it was about. And I came away shocked because it was a big schoolyard fight. It was exactly like you see in the movies. All the kids are watching. There's people surrounding us. We're in this big fight. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm so going to get suspended when I come to school the next day. Also, I'm thinking to myself, I completely lost because it really hurt at the end of the fight. I go home. I come back to school the next day, like ready to march into the principal's office because I'm figuring this is it. The jig is up. I'm out of this place for a week minimally for what I did during this school fight. Nothing. Not a word. No one said anything. Went back to school. The next time I had a conversation about this topic was 6 months later with the kid who got in a fight with me, and we started talking, and he said to me, "Do you remember that fight we had 6 months ago?" And I'm like, "Oh, I do. It was so stupid." And he says, "You realize you won that fight?" I'm like, "You got to be kidding. I was in agony," I said to him. He says, "I was bleeding." And I looked at him and I said, "That was just stupid." And he says, "Yup." And we got along after that. This, by the way, absolutely characterized my experience with school bullies when I was a kid. I know a lot of you out there who will be watching this were bullied when you were a kid in school and you were never able to make peace with the bullies. They just tormented you all the way to the end of grade 12. And I am very, very sad that you had that experience. For me, it was a much better outcome. By the end of grade 12, really all the school bullies that I knew of had made peace with me. I just can't remember any that hadn't actually directly made peace with me. Even the kids who were part of literal Satanist groups had actually come up to me, the new Christian in high school, and made peace with me by the end of grade 12. So I had better outcomes than many people did. But as for that particular story, I still never understood why I never got in trouble with the principal. Years later, I just mention offhand the story with my mother. And my mother's like, "Oh, I know why you never got in trouble with the principal." And I'm like, "Okay, I want to hear this." And mom tells me, "Yeah, the principal called me after that fight." And I said to the principal said to me, "We're suspending your son tomorrow for that fight." And my response to the principal was, "Where were you when he came home beat up earlier from other bullies who had hit him? Where were you when he was the victim of bullying rather than somebody who fought back?" And the principal was so ashamed of their inability to answer that question and so thoroughly cognizant of how often it happened that the principal could not bring themselves to come to me and suspend me for what I had done. Very, very strange piece of history. I'm incredibly impressed with my mother. I am, however, also extremely glad that later on I was able to make some peace with the person that I had gotten in a fight with at this particular time. And I'm very glad that I was able to make peace with the bullies in my school by the end of grade 12. Some of these people are on my Facebook today. I get along with and talk with today. And I think that that is a good thing. Because if there's anything I want to say about being bullied, there's many things I want to say about being bullied, and I will. But I think the first thing I want to say about being bullied is it doesn't make you special, and it doesn't make you a good person to have been bullied. You need a little bit more than having been a victim to be a good person and to be decent and to figure out a way past your experiences. So here's a few thoughts that I've got. If you're young and you're in school and you happen to be seeing this and you're being bullied, definitely speak up. You should not tolerate bullying privately. You may have to handle the bully yourself. You may have to figure out a solution yourself. You cannot necessarily rely on the adults around you to fix it for you, but you will want to find other kids and especially adults who have experience with being bullied and talk to them about your experiences. There are certain things that I needed to do to deal with why I was being bullied myself. One of which was to stop being so entertaining to those who would bully. Whenever anybody picked on me in the least little way, I completely overreacted to it, whether it was teasing or anything else. And I have to say, even me now thinks of me from the past as rather entertaining on this front. Why did I do this kind of stuff? I was extremely sensitive, and I needed to learn maybe to be a bit less sensitive and to make the active choice to control my emotions and grow up in how I deal with how I react to small offenses so that I do not then later on become the victim of bigger offenses. To be honest, that's one of the ways I think about it. Having said that, some of you are being bullied by people who will try to hospitalize you or seriously hurt you in ways that were worse than what I experienced. And you can't just let that kind of thing happen. You can't let people seriously injure you or bring you to the point of suicidal ideation. You've got to actually sometimes find outside help for things like that. And sometimes that outside help might actually be to get out of that school entirely if there's any way to do that. So that's another thing I would say is know the difference between the kind of bullying that you can handle yourself and the kind of bullying you can't. And some of the best ways to find that out is either through your school counselor, if they're any good, which is no guarantee, or through adults that you know who have been bullied, who have a better chance of being able to figure this kind of stuff out. The next thing I would say is think about what you're doing that might actually not just be funny to bullies, but actually might be mean yourself. Sometimes you're getting in trouble not because you're entertaining or fun or weak, but because actually you're kind of an awful person yourself, and you're putting other children in a situation where they don't know how to respond to you other than through violence or through intimidation, because you yourself are running over all of their feelings and all of the things that they need to interact well in the life around them. And it's really worth putting some time and some energy into thinking about how the things you say and the things you do affect those around you. This is not easy when you're a child. This is something you want to work on all the time, whether you're bullied or not. It's something you want to talk to good, capable adults. Don't just find an adult, but find an adult that you know is really good at interacting with people well and treating people well, and see what they think of your behavior and talk to them about how you can be a better person. Also, talk to your friends. Look at the ones in the school who don't get bullied as much, but also don't bully, who treat each other really well and get along well with others. And talk to them about what they're doing and about what you can do different. And I won't say that's easy. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to do this quite a bit, and it really helped a lot. But there are times you just don't want to hear it. So hear it for a little while, go home, sulk, come back 3 days later, ask for some more advice until you figure out a path to actually interact with the other students in your school better. Nowadays, though, and this is kind of a fun thing to do, is if you get a chance, go on Netflix and watch a new show called Cobra Kai. When I was a kid, the movie The Karate Kid had this classic scene of the kid who was bullied, who learns how to fight and actually wins a karate tournament against the person who bullied them. And now that I'm an adult, the show actually has the same actors, and they're going through what their lives are like when they're older. And you can actually see what typically happens to bullies and bullied people, and people who are really popular when they're kids, but end up being less popular when they're older and having more difficulty getting work, versus people who are often nerdy when they're kids, but either they inherited money like the Karate Kid did in the television show Cobra Kai, or they also figured out how to run businesses or do inventions or become doctors or lawyers or other successful people where they made good money. It's really worth seeing this show and seeing what all these changes in lives do to people. You'd be surprised how many people used to bully you as a kid. If you're a little older, people who used to bully you as a kid who've actually grown up to have merely miserable lives. It's quite often the case, but there'll also be some of them who grew up and really made something of themselves. They became decent human beings. And because they used to bully people when they were kids, they're really good at spotting it around them. And they do a really good job of diminishing that in the people around them. It's really neat watching somebody who used to be pretty bad as a kid grow up, choose to be better as an adult, and have really profound and good effects on their neighborhood and their communities and their employees as a result of understanding what they had done wrong when they were younger. At the same time, it can be really sad to watch somebody who was bullied as a kid who nurtures their resentments to the point where they're just hateful to the people around them, or difficult to get along with, or worse in some cases, and we've seen this in the United States, they decide to become school shooters or terrorists in their adult life because they've been nurturing their anger and their resentment over their mistreatment when they were young, to the point where they just want to kill them all. This is not an uncommon human experience, and it's one to avoid. No matter how horrible your experiences were when you were a kid, you do not want to fall into the pattern of nurturing your own resentments and growing them like little monsters in your soul. Because you're a human, and all humans share this in common. Deep down inside, we are a monstrous species. We're all capable of truly horrific and awful things. And if you nurture the desire to do that, eventually you will be that person who does that. Do not become that person. Stop yourself now from harboring your resentments and find a better way to deal with it. And then the last thing I would say is there will be some of you who are bullied under circumstances that are beyond horrific. I knew a man who was sexually abused by other boys in his school, and he couldn't do anything about it because those boys were the children of the local judge and the local police officers and the school principal, and no one in the community was going to believe or care about what he had to say. And it took him a while to escape from that situation, and he was lucky enough that he could even escape from that situation. Other kids can't get out of that at all. I don't have anything I can say other than try to get Child Protective Services or try to get some adult outside of that chain of command to do something. I wish I had better things I could say for these particularly horrifying things. Try to get outside help, national help if it's local. Do what you can to get out of this situation. But if you're older and you've gone through that and you got out because you aged out of it, I would still say the same thing. As awful as your experiences were, you do not want to stay in your own resentments. It won't help you to prosper as an adult. It won't help you to heal. It won't help to make the world a better place, and it won't stop these kinds of things from happening again. But to those around who have children and are looking in their environment, if you see a kid who has any kind of complete freak out that you don't understand, that could possibly be related to people in power abusing that child, and that child having no idea how to say it to anybody, listen and look and pay attention and observe what's going on. You might be able to save a child from an enormous amount of trauma and make the world a better place. So, with that, I don't want to say I hope you enjoyed this episode of Horizons of Thought, because this is not an easy episode to take, but I hope that it was helpful to you and that you learn from it. I'm going to put some links below on groups and organizations that help in New Zealand, because that's where I live. But if you're in another area and you can comment put some links below that help people deal with these kinds of situations in your own countries. And if you have any better advice than the advice I have, or anything to say, or anything to rail about what I'm saying here, please put it in the comments below. I'll be happy to do a follow-up video that might have better advice than the stuff I'm able to give here. I'm only going on my own experiences. They are clearly not as bad as the experiences of other people that I've known. Thank you for watching Horizons of Thought. I hope to be back in about 1 to 2 weeks, and I will see you then. Again, if you like this episode, click like. If you disliked it, click dislike. If you want to help subscribe to this channel, go down to the donor box below and hit subscribe, and you can subscribe for various amounts each month. Thank you, and have a good day.